COVID hit, no one in the broader watch world knew I existed. The fear of putting yourself out there. It's not an easy jump if you want any modicum of success. You kind of really need to put yourself out there. And I was like, okay, let me do this. It was my first video. And immediately it was like at a couple 100,000. So very quickly I was like, okay, there's a gigantic untapped market here. Brands started paying attention and the greater watch world started paying attention. Now I'm a go-to person for the watch world.
Yo, on today's episode of Creators Lunch, we gotta chop it up with Mike Nouveau. If you're unfamiliar, let us tell you what time it is. In the past few years, he became social media's go-to vintage watch specialist, who's amassed over 400K followers on all platforms and has been featured in esteemed publications like the New York Times and GQ. I first met him at my guy Andrew Chan's store 316, then reconnected at a Rangers game back in December. I knew I needed to hear more about his story, and what better way to do that than chopping it up on wax over sushi from Kazunori. We talked about how he plans to expand his content.
Because you have that trust, because you have that community, then it's not only about watches. Now you can start talking about
Content creation as a marketing strategy for your business.
So everything that you're doing content-wise is for you to complement your business.
Yes, and honestly, even if you break it down even more, it's
And thriving while being in a specific niche.
TikTok. People wouldn't think there were like adults on here with expensive and collectible watches, but there absolutely are.
All right, let's peep the details.
What up, bro?
What's up, man? How are you? Brian, nice to meet you.
Mike Nouveau.
Ooh, that was a good one. Thanks for having me.
Of
course,
Here, I'm guessing?
Yes, sir.
Cool.
What's going on, man?
Chilling.
How was Christmas?
It's good, low key. I was in Vermont with my mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is she based out in Vermont?
Yeah, she moved there like 15 years ago.
From Jersey, right?
No, we lived in Nyack, Rockland County, New York.
Oh, okay.
Both my parents are from the Bronx, though.
Got you.
But yeah, it was a.
Why did I think that you're from Jersey?
I don't know.
Oh, you're from Nyack.
Yeah, Nyack.
9W.
Exactly. I was on there yesterday because as I was driving back from Vermont, I was like, fuck it, I'll get off 87 and drive through
Yeah.
Route 59 to Rockland County.
So
Thank you.
Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in Rockland, Nyack.
So yo, tell us a little bit about who is Mike Nouveau?
First, I started. Do you want the whole story? You want from the start, or
Wherever you want to start it.
okay? So basically, I was a DJ for 15 years, downtown New York. So, and I was very kind of adjacent to the fashion industry because that was one of my big interests, and a lot of my friends were in the fashion world. So I kind of positioned myself intentionally as kind of like a fashion world DJ. So I was traveling for all the fashion weeks and stuff like that. Doing after parties, runway shows, stuff like that. And along the way, I also became interested in watches, which is sort of like adjacent to like men's fashion. And so I don't even know what year this was. Not that long ago. I didn't grow up with watches or anything like that. None of my parents and none of my relatives had watches. Somewhere along the way, I picked up an appreciation for watches, and I saved some money and I bought my first watch.
What was the first watch?
It was a vintage Rolex, a GMT reference 1675. I kind of bought it right before the market exploded. And I've always been like a real like researcher, like an obsessive like researcher. So I kind of studied everything there was to know about that specific watch reference online, etc., talking to other collectors, message boards, forums. And by the time I bought this watch, I felt like I was nearly an expert on this one little reference. From there, obviously the interest didn't stop. I had the watch and now I was, researching other watches, other brands. And sooner or later, I would stumble upon what I would think would be very good deals for watches that I didn't necessarily want to own myself, but I knew there was value there because someone was offering it half the price of what I thought it might be worth. So when enough of those kind of situations appeared in front of me, I was like, I should be like trying to make money off this. I should, this could be like a business. So I did some, light flipping, I guess you would call it. And then I stumbled upon like kind of a crazy watch on essentially a Facebook group, like a watch. Somebody posted a terrible photo, like a BlackBerry photo of this watch, and was like someone just brought this into my jewelry shop and they want me to polish it. I feel like I shouldn't polish it because that would take away the value. I don't really know that. Does anyone know anything about this? And in the comments, we're like, oh, it's fake, or it's a lady's watch, or like, oh, no, it's no good. Like, it's a copy. And I'm looking at this watch. I'm like, I'm not an expert on this watch, but I'm looking at it. I'm like, this looks real to me. So I sent the photos to someone, my friend Cameron, who is a dealer, and he's like, this is absolutely real. See if you could put a deal together here.
Which watch was
So it was a Patek Philippe Nautilus, reference 3700. So in yellow gold. So the first Nautilus ever to come out in like 1978, I think. I can't remember if it was 1976 or 1978. The first Nautilus ever in solid gold, which is a very rare combination. The steel version sells for 6 figures. So the gold one is obviously even more. So Cameron said, if you put this deal together, we will wire the money. He will wire the money and you go get it. And then we'll be partnered on this watch. So that's basically what I did with no money of my own. I went tracked down this watch. I put the deal together. Somebody else wired for the watch. I picked it up and then we sold it and I got half the profit. And I was like, okay, this is like quickly, I could see this quickly becoming more interesting and more profitable than DJing.
Do you mind sharing what the profit was?
Yeah, it was, in hindsight, what I didn't realize at the time, and again, I was coming into this as a nobody, was there was a third partner involved, which I didn't know about. So somebody else was wiring for this watch, really, and now there's 3 middlemen, essentially. So I think I got $12,000 myself for it, but, from nothing, from searching around message boards. So I'm like, damn, okay, this is something if I find more watches like this.
So this is like probably 2013, 2014?
No, later than that. Maybe 2017.
And then when you picked up your first Rolex, that was...
Not that long ago. I always tell people I haven't been doing this that long, maybe 2016.
Oh, wow. So,
yeah,
okay.
Pretty recent. But the amount of research that I do when I become obsessed with something is kind of years worth condensed into a short period of time because I could be very obsessive. So once I figured out that all you need really is kind of the knowledge, and where people kind of miss opportunities is when they doubt themselves. Like, oh, I'm not an expert on this, so something must be wrong here, because why would this be half the price? And sometimes that is the case. But yeah, so I was still DJing then. I started doing a few of these deals on the side. I didn't care about DJing anymore. I really the passion completely faded away. I also don't drink. I don't do any drugs. I never have. So I was also in nightlife as like a non-drinker. Mm-hmm. And, I was also now I'm 30 years old. So I'm like, damn, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. Then COVID hit. And then I was like, okay, now there's no more DJing right now. So I kind of want to focus on this full time. So that's basically what I did. And then kind of no one really outside of some dealers that I dealt with pretty closely knew I existed. No one in the broader fashion world no one in the broader watch world knew I existed until I got onto TikTok. And that was also not that long ago. It was only, I think, May 2022. So well after the COVID TikTok explosion. I had a lot of friends on TikTok. My friend Isaac, I think Isaac Likes.
Yeah. Shout out to Isaac.
Yeah, shout out Isaac. He really pushed to get me on there because I saw his kind of life and situation change because of this app. So finally, and then there were some others, my friend Bailey, my friend Nolan. I want to shout them out too because they were important in getting me to get over the hurdle of making videos, because it's not an easy jump. It's not like Instagram. Well, now Instagram is so Reels focused, but before that, anyone could have, your uncle could have an Instagram page and post photos of their dog or cat. When you go onto TikTok, you kind of really need to put yourself out there. If you want any modicum of success, you really need to talk to the camera, and that's kind of hard to start doing, especially in your 30s, that's for sure. But once the first video I did was, the original idea was I was going to stop people on the street and ask them about their watches.
And did you do that?
Yeah, I basically, the same day I came up with it, I was like, okay, let me do this. And I did one video. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how the app worked. I edited it together. I think I used CapCut from the very beginning.
Which is also owned by ByteDance.
Yes,
Yeah.
which I like. I couldn't live without CapCut. It's like I use CapCut more than I use TikTok itself. I probably have more screen hours on CapCut than anything. So I put this video together, and immediately it was like at a couple 100,000 views. My first video, and so my friends were like, "Don't get used to this because this is not normal. Like this is
out the gate you had a hit.
Out the gate, right away." And looking back,
And that's how they hook you.
yeah, it's true, and they were right because that doesn't last forever, and those views do go away.
Yep.
I realized there was nearly no watch content on TikTok at all. Very quick, and I didn't think I was ever going to put my face on it. I wasn't even sure the account was Mike Nouveau, but I wasn't sure if I should make the account called Watch Spotter or something like that. And I'm glad I stuck with my own name. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to. My face was ever going to be on the video. And then within a couple of days, I was getting DMs being like, where do I buy vintage watches? How do I know if this watch is real? Like, oh, I inherited all these Patek Philippe's. Can you help me? I was like, geez, there's a lot of people. Like, I think this was kind of a medium TikTok or an app that people wouldn't think there were like adults on here with real like expensive and collectible watches, but there absolutely are, and there were. So very quickly I was like, okay, there's a gigantic untapped market here, and I'm the only one that's basically talking about vintage watches. So let me like keep going with this, and I put myself on camera and I was answering questions, and I was just basically kind of answering questions and doing the watch buying videos at first. And then once I started kind of doing other out in the world videos, like me buying a watch or me authenticating a watch or covering other people's collections, that's when it really started exploding. I want to say exploding because I mean, today in almost 2024, my numbers are not like that crazy compared to some people. Now I feel like you could sign up and have 1 million followers in 2 months if you hit the notes right. But yeah, I mean, I kind of ran with it, and I posted every single day, like barely taking a day off. When I take a day off, I get kind of stressed, like 7 videos a week at least. And then, brands started paying attention, and the greater watch world started paying attention. And, yeah, I mean, now I feel like I'm kind of like a go-to person in terms of at least video content creation for the watch world, whether it's new or vintage or buying and selling or new releases or whatever.
So many questions. But
Yeah, sure.
Who's your core demographic? What's your psychographic look like? Is it young kids getting into it? Is it older folks that are like?
I'd say it's kind of representative of TikTok as a whole. I mean, obviously it skews younger, absolutely. But there's also, and I tell people this because other dealers will be like, do you think I should get onto TikTok? I really don't think there's not people out there. There's not a real collect. I'm like, you are wrong. Like, yes, there's a lot of 18-year-olds and a lot of college kids, but there's absolutely 45-year-old dudes who have a bank vault with 50 Pateks in there. They definitely exist, and they wouldn't know I existed if it wasn't for TikTok. So definitely it skews younger, which also there are young kids with money. There are young guys with money, whether they're buying, a $5,000 Rolex Datejust, or they're like they've come into serious money and are buying a Richard Mille or something like that. But there's definitely younger guys and girls with money for sure on there. But yes, it does skew a little younger. But that younger demographic is kind of an audience that was being ignored by the greater watch world, I would say.
So is it like 50% 18 to 24? Is it like 30%? Is it?
I mean, I could probably look at my analytics and tell you exactly, but I'd say it's probably, maybe 50%, 18 to 28 probably, or maybe 18 to 25, probably 50%.
Let's talk more about the process. Are you still uploading 7 videos per week?
I try to, and even like this is like Christmas week, and I've skipped like 2 days, and it stresses me out that I've skipped 2 days, and I was also at my mom's house for 4 days, so I wasn't on the street like filming stuff. So I also do not have a big backlog, which stresses me out.
Is there a typical backlog? Like how many days do you try to have in the can?
God, really hardly ever do I have a backlog. I wish I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I usually the most I'll have is like 3, or at least 3 ideas. Or like when I was at Watches and Wonders in Geneva, the day after I was like, okay, I have 10 videos. Wow, I can relax a little bit. And then very quickly those videos are gone. I'm like, oh damn, I gotta film a whole new thing now. So that is like that is probably the biggest point of stress in terms of the entire thing, more so than even selling the watches, is making sure I have videos or video concepts at least.
So I want to ask this because I don't know anything about watches.
Sure.
I don't know what a Ming is.
Yeah.
I my pops has a Patek,
Yeah.
but I don't have any
Well, that's a good starting
idea.
point.
I don't have any idea about the nuances and all these like inside baseball
Right.
names that y'all dropping. But I do want to ask, how much of the Mike Nouveau page is a page for your audience to have utility, and how much of it is your personal interest?
I'd say the majority is my personal interest, and I will do videos how to buy a vintage watch, or here are 10 watches under $1,000. I will do those videos, but the majority I'd say is me, and you kind of have to like me and my interests to really get like maximum value out of like my page.
Yeah, from outside looking in, it seems like initial discovery might happen because you have the perfect notes, as you said, with a watch spotting, but it's very clear that it's since graduated from that to
Yes.
you know what, like I'm up in Vermont and I saw that it's
Exactly,
very much
yes.
about you, right? How much of that was conscious?
It was not conscious at all until the watch spotting videos started to like perform less well. It used to be, my first 50 videos were like 100,000 views minimum. Like it was almost a guarantee. And then what's funny is I could pinpoint the exact point that started. Like I did like a slideshow before TikTok offered like actual slideshows. I did like a CapCut template of like 50 watch photos really quick with like set to music. Like here's the watch I saw in the last week. And I was thinking, wow, if this works, I can do 100 of these videos and my life will be so much easier. And the video flopped so bad. I was like, oh man. And then after that, it's almost like the app was punishing me for looking for like an easy way out. And like, that's when like kind of the struggle began to like, now I really have to work to make these videos. But it was quick. I was quickly realized I needed something more than just watch spotting. And also I think people like the New York aspect of the videos. I get a lot of comments where people are like, is this what really happens in New York? Or like, this is like, there's really people wearing watches like this in New York? Or when someone pulls up to me in a car and hands me a watch and drives away because, I'm picking up a watch from, people are like, is this really how? And yes, the answer is yes. I think it's also, you could not have any interest in watches and still get something out of my page because of the New York content or I always tell people who are kind of looking for struggling with content, or if I'm filming something, that one of my favorite parts of the videos, and I really think it's one of the parts that people comment on the most, is the banter. The banter between me and another person, or me and another dealer, or me in a negotiation, or me just going back and forth with someone is like people really get a kick out of it, I find. I also enjoy it, and I get a lot of comments about it, and it's kind of like really shows the personality of me and the other people in the video. And I think that is also some of the highest performing videos have like that funny banter back and like organic banter back and forth.
How many days a week do you go out to shoot content?
I try to be outside like every day. And I'm always looking to film something. And a lot of times I'll be filming and I'll think this is nothing. And then it turns into something. Like one of my top performing videos is my friend Phil Toledano trying to buy a watch off someone's wrist. And me and him were sitting outside of a coffee shop and we saw someone walk in.
Louis.
Exactly. Wearing a Louis Vuitton Monterey 2, which is this watch that has exploded in popularity and cost since this video.
So you were the catalyst?
Yeah, Tyler, the creator, had also worn it previously, but there's an article about my video kind of giving credit to the video, because when I filmed this watch, I'd say it was a $1,500 watch and the guy had just paid $600 for it. And I think we sold several of them for $15,000 within 3 months. So that's what this video kind of did. So the kid walks into the store, he's wearing the watch. I say, Phil, did you see what he's wearing? He said, no. So he's wearing a Monterey 2 because Phil had one. He's like, I'm going to try to buy it off his wrist. Okay. I said, okay, well, I'm going to film it. And the kid comes out and I'm struggling to start recording. That's why the video kind of starts right in the middle. So I put a caption up, like a banner that says like trying to buy a watch off someone's wrist. And the reaction to that video was crazy. I mean, I think it's at 4 million views now, which, you know, for some giant creators is nothing, but I wasn't even, after filming it, because he doesn't buy the watch in the end.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, there's no point in posting this if he didn't buy the watch. But I was like, you know what, whatever, I have nothing to post today, I'll post it, and it like exploded.
I thought that was such a great video because there's notes in it. Like you do watch videos, but at the end of the day, it's so much different from like what, you know, I think his name is Vucom or like with those, the 47th Street deal, like, because it's not about, that had negotiation like they might have.
Right.
But it's so much more about your personality
Yes.
and so much more about you than it is about that particular thing. And then you're able to highlight not only aspects of New York like they do, but all aspects, not just that street, right?
Also, there's a difference between consumer habits as well. Because what those guys do, and I love what those guys do, but it feels very much like History Channel, pawn shop.
Right.
You know, it's like set up in a particular setting, and it's a controlled environment.
Yes.
Whereas you're outside.
Yeah.
And
It comes through.
that organic feel is what the audience gravitate towards. And exactly like you said, the fact that even though you didn't end up walking away with the watch, the interaction itself is so real.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, especially the TikTok audience gravitate towards.
Speaking of articles, you just had a New York Times article.
Yes.
How much?
And you did as well.
Yes, we did as well. How much did that matter for you?
It mattered a lot personally. It didn't move the needle, and I didn't think it would. It didn't move the needle in terms of followers or business, but for me, it was a milestone.
Do you want to share our philosophy on what that represented for us?
Again, it was a prestige. It was a
Definitely.
badge. It was like the Sunset Boulevard billboard.
100%.
We know that it wasn't going to necessarily change or increase our followers,
Right.
where it wasn't going to be a huge moment with the pre-existing audience that we have, but it was something that an older executive who was still signing checks would look
100%.
at that and hit us up and say, oh, we just saw you on the Times. It was for like that 15, 20 people that reads the Times.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and for, if Googling you and having that being the first thing that comes up,
it was the
you
signal.
can't even buy that.
Yeah. So what are some of the perks of being in this space as a watch content creator?
Well, I mean, watches are still my main interest. So the fact that like I'm now kind of welcomed by the industry is like kind of a big thing.
How long did that take?
Well, you started your page, you said, in May 2022.
Yeah, so it's only been a year and
year and a half.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing growth.
In my mind, it stagnated a bit. Like the first 100,000 followers came within like 90 days, I think, which that I thought was impressive. And then it's harder now.
Do you have a team? Like, is
Nope.
anyone helping you edit? You do everything yourself still? Have you thought about that? Yeah.
I like the editing process. I kind of wouldn't mind like a whole business manager, including the watches themselves.
From the outside looking in, all right, I see many aspects of what you probably spend your time on right now, right? So you have one part that is essentially a studio head trying to figure out what kind of content to program, right? Then you have the person that actually has to go out and shoot it, both as talent and as someone that's behind the camera, and then edit it. So you have the production aspect of it, strategy, production. You also probably have your business still flipping watches, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that is a whole other onset of replying to folks, you know.
100%. And that's essentially the income is that.
Oh, so that's most of your income.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I would imagine with the scale and the influence that you have now, especially as a SME, like there's probably people from brands that are reaching out to you as well, right? So how do you split your time if you have a pie, I guess?
So I still consider myself first and foremost a watch dealer, but probably that's only like about 10% of my time.
Okay.
The majority of the time is filming, I'd say, and editing, and then that's like, let's say that's 90% of my focus. The watches I always say, the watches we sell themselves. like someone will buy the watch. So if someone's trying to lowball me or negotiate and I don't want to negotiate, I'll tell them, sorry. And they're like, you won't go any lower? And I'll say, no, because this watch will sell. Or if they're like, oh, can you change the strap? Can you find me this? I'm like, no, this will sell as is because I know it's a great watch.
I wanted the inside baseball, just how you were thinking about monetization and where it goes. Again, I consider you to be a creator, right? And not an influencer. And I saw that transition happen where,
What's the difference?
So we talk about this all the time.
Difference.
Huge difference. An influencer is a one-way arrow to an audience. You're literally trying to sell them something.
Okay.
And by the way, you could replace influencer with celebrity. A celebrity is a one-way arrow to an audience.
Okay.
An audience sits there and ingests, and you're constantly selling either a product or a narrative, right? A creator is a two-way arrow to a community. There's a constant dialogue. You see all the highs, you see all the lows, you see the wins, you see the warts, you see sort of all of it. And when you can start to push into personal content where they follow Mike Nouveau for you and not just because of the haggling on 47th, right? That's what I think separates.
Because you said that you consider yourself a watch dealer.
First, yes.
And that's top priority. So everything that you're doing content-wise is for you to supplement or complement your business as
Yes,
a watch dealer.
because
So
I
the
don't really-
content that you're constantly putting out is for you to continuously grow your watch business.
Yes. And honestly, even if you break it down even more, it's for me to get amazing watches for myself.
Right.
So that's still like the collector gene that I have.
Right.
That like if someone sends me say a watch, say, hey, I want to sell this, the first thing I think is, wow, do I want this for myself?
Right.
And then can I sell this?
What's your 10-year plan? What do you want to do?
Good question. I don't know. It's hard to say. I think in the end, it breaks down to like a consultancy maybe, where you're consulting for either brands or auction houses or high net worth individuals or family offices or something like that. I always want to be hunting watches. That's like what gives me the most joy is like finding something like that, like discovering like in a pile of garbage, like an amazing watch. That's like always the thrill for me. That's why I don't care about selling so much.
I see.
I don't think anyone will ever say, oh, he's doing these videos just to sell this watch. Like, oh, he's making this video to hype up this. Like, I never give the hard sell. I'm constantly recommending other dealers, other places to buy watches.
And I think that's why your community fucks with you, by the way.
Yeah, maybe.
But by the way, that's another difference between creator and influencer. Because I think once you have that trust and that track record, then you essentially make the market.
Yeah.
And I don't know how candid you can be. I would imagine you move markets now. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I mean, in a
certain
very
watches.
in a very light touch way, you're saying this is the price, and there's no price discovery. This is what I want for it, and
100%,
right?
Definitely.
So even in that way, you've already started moving the markets. I think what's very interesting in our thesis on a lot of this stuff is, well, that's where like if you ever went down that path and you worked with the brand to make a completely new watch, even
Right.
because you have that trust, because you have that community, you can now set and make whatever you want. And then if you really start to zoom out, and if you can get large enough and build a community large enough, then it's not only about watches. Now you can start talking about cars.
Right.
Now you can start talking about fashion.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Now you can start talking about whatever else you want to talk about.
Yeah. And I do kind of, well, every so often I'll do a video that's not about watches. It's about food or fashion or travel or something, which I do like doing. Because I do see my friends getting like $20,000 Reebok sponsored post. Like I could easily do that. That would fit right in, or Levi's or something, that would not be a stretch for me to do like a Levi's sponsored post hypothetically. So yeah, I kind of,
What kind of brands are reaching out to you right now, by the way? Outside of watch brands.
none really.
None? Okay.
I don't think. I'm trying to remember.
Can you share what watch brands are reaching out to you?
Have you done any?
And
Any like sponsored posts or any like brand campaigns?
the only sponsored post I've ever done was for Watches and Wonders when they flew me out, and that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's none others.
Yeah.
There's zero.
That's gangster, by the way. See, that kind of stuff builds credibility.
Yeah,
Right.
but I'm not saying that I wouldn't. It's just like people have reached out, and I've given them the price that it would cost for me to be okay doing it. That doesn't mean in their board meeting, they look at me and they say, okay, he has 350,000 followers. That's only worth this.
Yeah.
That is irrelevant to me. I am giving you the price that I would feel comfortable doing this for.
That's funny you
and
say
if you
that.
don't want to pay it, I completely understand. That's completely fine. I don't care. I can live without sponsored posts, and I do. And that's it. And but I think if there's a marketing person or an ad buyer who really knows me and understands the audience, and I'd say there's probably value there versus sponsoring a regular New York City like influencer content creator. But yeah, I can definitely be bought, but it's for the right price. And I think I have a higher than average net worth audience compared to probably most TikTokers.
100%. I think the average consumption or the average disposable income rate of your audience compared to the audience at Righteous Eats, because food is a lot more egalitarian.
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
a wider audience, it's a wider TAM. It's significantly different than
Very
people
much
looking
so.
at Rolex watches.
Definitely.
So that's and the point that you addressed, that a marketing person looking at your vanity metrics, as in, okay, he has 350,000 followers and the market rate for 350,000 followers is this.
Right.
That's why this is the rate that we're offering him. And he's crazy for quoting us something that is
Yes.
5 times that. I totally agree with you. That is irrelevant, because that 350,000 or 3.5 million, it doesn't mean anything
Right.
if the actual engagement on, by engagement, I don't just mean views and comments,
Right.
and the visibility of the content. I'm talking like, are you really moving the needle?
Right.
Like, if you do an IRL event, 2,000 people, are they going to show up for
Right.
you? Are you having influence in the market of a certain watch now being flipped 10 times the
Right.
original price?
Right.
Those are stuff that you can't quantify using Captivate.
Totally, 100%. I totally agree.
To quote, to categorize you at a certain price point. So I totally agree with you on that, and I'm on the same wave.
But are you running into that being a problem though?
Well,
Because I feel like that's pretty standard practice now, and people understanding that like the intent around working with someone that does product reviews, for example, the CPM should probably be way higher than working with like a lifestyle person that
Right.
happens to have a consumer product in that video.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I had a big brand reach out, and they had reached out twice, different agencies though. And the first time I gave them a high price, I didn't hear back. And the second time they told me what they wanted. And this is it's hard to explain without saying it, but it is a service that like I do like reluctantly use, but advise people generally to stay away from it unless you're an expert. And they asked me for something and I quoted them a high price. And within 45 seconds, they responded to my email saying, can you please walk us through how you came to that price? So which meant to me like that is a crazy price. And what are you thinking? But that's fine. That's fine with me. That's the price it would cost for me to do that.
What other aspects of your business do you want to grow?
Do you know what I need? I need someone to come in and like take over everything, from the watch sales to concepts to reaching out to other creators, to reaching out to brands, to reaching out to PR people and event people. I want someone to take over like Mike Nouveau, because I am not the person. I don't like asking for things. I'm not good at like requesting invitations to something. Also, it's like if you're inviting me to some premiere of like some new watches and there's 10 other TikTokers there that I do not respect at all. I want the exclusive. If you want this for free, I want the exclusive. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You need a filter.
Yeah, I want, and also like, here's the other thing. So you said creator, influencer. I think there's a third thing, which is journalist, which some people will conveniently categorize me as because you don't pay journalists. So I'll get invited to something and I think they're inviting me like expecting content, but oh, here's my rates. Oh no, we don't pay journalists. So I'm a journalist when it's convenient for them. And, you know, I think a lot, there's definitely events where my contemporaries are not getting paid either, but I think we should be getting paid. And seemingly whenever we mention rates or anything, the invites just stop.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting way you look at it.
Yeah.
Because I worked as a journalist.
Yeah.
Worked for, hip hop magazines and Complex. And back then, this is more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
A publicist's job is to get a writer to come cover an event that gets published in a magazine or a website.
Mm-hmm.
These publications don't have the same visibility or clout that they once did.
Right.
And the people that are moving the needle are content creators, because it's direct engagement, more views. So yeah, like essentially we are somewhat in this weird middle lane that is quasi journalists, content creators / independent contractors who are agencies that are promoting these products, right? So I think the fact that you raised this point, and for other creators that are listening to this, is something to really think about. And when you get invited to these things, though, and since you mentioned that you felt like, you felt that you should be compensated for these opportunities, do you have, again, like some sort of a system where you say, if it falls under this bucket, I'll go, and if it has this type of utility for me, I'll go? Like, do you have a specific?
Well, the problem is, and another TikTok friend of mine mentioned this to me, that maybe if I was less focused on posting every day, I could be more picky with what I do and where I go. Because right now, if I need 7 videos a week, I have to go to these things that, well, for example, if one brand paid me to come into the office and do like a breakdown of their watch and do a review, whatever, fine, that's great. But then if I say, okay, these people paid me, so now everyone has to pay me, they're just going to stop it. I think most of them will just stop asking me. And then I have less access and less content to post. So for example, if I'm just going to completely make this up, if Seiko said, here's 10 grand, come in, do a review of our new releases, just you in the office, we'll give you full access. I say, okay. And then Vacheron reaches out, again, completely hypothetical. And I'll say, okay, well, I did this for 10K for Seiko. It's going to be 10K to do it for you also. And they say, oh, sorry, we have no budget. And then they just never invite me again. And I think most, if you go around in a circle of every brand, I think you lose access to stuff if you're charging for it. And again, I'm in this position where I need to post a lot, so I need the content.
So I think it's tricky. I think the biggest thing that we think about a lot is just the transparency around it. I think there's nothing wrong with charging for a post, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I don't say this lightly. I think you're more relevant than Hodinkee at this point, right? You really are, right? I'm going to trust Mike more than I'm going to trust Hodinkee. I just am, because you live it, breathe it. You're out there. You know what I mean? You're not a media publication, right?
Right.
With all the with the masthead and with all these different things, right? There's nothing wrong with the fact that you're being charged for your work and your time, but I think the disclosure, right? So journalist versus creator versus influencer. I think with journalism, there was supposed to be a separation of church and state, right? But now everything's mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's unrealistic. By the way, I would actually push back and say, I still think that everyone's a creator. I think that Elon Musk is a creator.
Right.
I think that, you know what I mean? He's he's an engineer and a CEO of a company, but at the end of the day, there's a community that he can pour into selling tequila or flamethrowers.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Or solar panels. Like, they'll buy whatever he's selling. He can, Tesla sells insurance. They have Tesla car insurance too.
Interesting.
So they like anything.
Solar
panels, like anything. And that's the world that we envision, right? But I know you were kind of just going between Seiko and Vacheron, maybe whoever. I think there's nothing wrong with charging them. Just disclose it. Just say, hey, you know what? Like, you might be a small You might be a small manufacturer. I'm going to do this for nothing because I want
Right.
one part of my content to be for brand new watchmakers, right? Or brand new brands. And then for these other guys, hey, you know what? I normally would have charged you for this, but I'm just a fan. And I think as long as the disclosure's there, the only thing that matters, especially in your position, is just building even more trust with your community.
Yeah. I would also love to figure out something, an item to sell besides just watches. I just don't, because I mean, I have people, you wouldn't believe the amount of messages and comments and DMs I get. Oh, what sunglasses are those? 10 times a day. What boots are those? What black shirt is that?
Totally.
I wish I had something to
You're
sell.
a stylish guy.
Thanks. But like every watch dealer sells like watch straps with their names embossed on the back. I don't want to do that. I want something else. I just don't know what that something is. I don't want to, obviously it's not going to be a hat that says Mike Nouveau on it. I don't know what it is, but I would love to figure that out.
Can't you do a collab with like a watch winder or something?
Yeah, I could for sure, but
The reason that you want to have this product, is it for monetary purpose, or is it really just because you want to have more of a robust community that feels like they're connected to something?
a community, brand building, and then of course monetary as well. You know, it'd be nice to, I read it somewhere that if you are relying on a third party like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, they could take it away any day. And then where are you? You know, so if you have a product, or if you are a product, you know, that kind of gives you something to fall back on.
That's a very good point. And I think about this
Thank
a
you.
lot as well, because people ask us, our community asks us, yo, y'all should have like a Righteous Eats hoodie.
Right.
Or, you know, can we get some Righteous Eats merch?
Well, I do think it makes more sense for you guys than it does, because you are a brand more than I am.
Well, even when I was just making content as Jakey Cho, moniker, Dolo, doing a whole lot of cooking and travel
Yeah.
content, people were asking me to make merch. And I refrained from that because I felt like the novelty of merch fizzles out rather quickly. And to build an entire merch business,
Right.
you have to approach it like how you would construct a brand.
For sure.
And that's a whole different bandwidth conversation. And I've learned that delaying the ask, of course, you don't want to miss that window where you become irrelevant
Right.
and nobody even cares about
Right.
you. But as long as that love is there, and delaying the ask so you could hit them with a big ask, that's one thing that I've been contemplating a lot about, is like, when is the best time to make the ask?
Right.
Because so far, at least on the Righteous Eats side, we haven't had anything that it was a big ask yet. And of course, again, I don't want to fall into the trap of never being able to ask, and people just look at us as like this nonprofit charity organization,
Right.
which we're not. But yeah, that's something to consider as well, right?
Also, I think when you were doing stuff yourself, I understand not branding, but now you have Righteous Eats, which is a brand where I'm Mike Nouveau and that's it. If I also had Righteous Watches, then I'd probably be more inclined to brand it because it's not my actual name. You know what I mean?
Have you thought about doing that though?
I don't know if I want to do anything that's not Mike Nouveau. But again, like, I always err on the side of not doing something, or I will err on the side of the more authentic option versus corny or cheesy. Because I feel like that's the worst thing you could possibly do. Like, once you're selling, like, God, I don't know. I can't even think of a good example. Once you're selling hats that says Mike Nouveau on, now you've gone into corny territory, and it's very. I don't think you can come back from
what
that.
if some people love Mike Nouveau hats?
That's fine, and I love that. They love me. I love that. However, you don't want to. I don't know. You don't want to like over brand it. You don't want like. I'm trying to think of a good
At
example.
least you have a cool
But
last
I
name.
actually-
Nouveau's a cool last name, you know?
Um,
Sounds posh.
I disagree with you though. I want to push back a little bit because I think that when you started TikTok, the DJ digging in the crates like person with immaculate taste and curation, that person probably would have said that guy making TikTok videos about watches is corny.
Oh, 100%. Definitely. No, I agree. And again, if it was something other than my name,
Okay.
I'd be more emboldened to do it. if I had at the very beginning, instead of being at Mike Nouveau, is at Watch Spotter.
Well, I
then
guess-
it might be a different thing.
I guess my question is, so there was no obstacle? You didn't think that was corny? Like what made you do it, right?
The
'Cause-
TikToks?
Yeah.
No, I did. And as I said, there's a big jump between posting pictures of your cat on Instagram to standing in front of a camera and talking, especially when you're already in your 30s, when most of the audience, especially 2 years ago, was much younger. So yeah, there is, but I also realize that like the fear of being portrayed as corny can hold you back for sure. Or the fear of putting yourself out there. I have friends that would never put themselves out there, and they maybe have their life took a different trajectory because of that, where maybe they didn't embrace opportunities. And then I have friends who put themselves out there way too much, where I think, damn, they're corny, and they'll do anything, put their name on anything, and go to the opening of anything. But maybe they're making way more money than they ever would have otherwise. And maybe they do get to experience amazing things because they embrace the corniness. But still, I'm trying to kind of stay in between those two extremes.
I want to contextualize in saying I think we're on the exact same page, right?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to play with that idea because Snoop is a gangster rapper,
Yes.
but what won't Snoop do now?
That's true. But he's, been around a really long time, and probably like,
He has enough credibility where if anybody wants to pull his receipts, he has more than
that's
enough.
true.
I mean,
You're right.
He
I
beat
think-
a murder
I think-
charge.
yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I think once you're at that level, then you can do whatever you want. I mean, like 50 Cent also, like all these people at the very beginning, I think once you have immaculate receipts, then you can get away with a lot more. I'm still building. I can't just suddenly go corny. And some people might be out there listening and be like, this dude is corny since day one, whatever. But I can't go to what I consider corny without like a stronger foundation, I'd say.
Which returns to the point, delaying the ask.
Yes,
As
that is
you
what
are
it is.
Building a robust community.
I also grew up in skateboarding, punk, and hardcore, and all of those things, authenticity was like key. Like if you were seen as like a poser, that was it for you. You might as well change schools. It's like that. And later on, I think with like, I kind of saw a shift with like Virgil and Off-White. Like once like, oh, copying is cool now. That's when like everyone had full access to everything. There was no gatekeeping anymore. There was no bullying in any way. And now everyone can have everything. And I think that was kind of like a big shift that I'm still kind of stuck
Totally.
behind, where I still think that authenticity is like pretty important.
Totally. And I also think I'm on the same wave. So I grew up underground hip hop where, keeping it real was the mantra, the dogma.
For sure.
But I'm curious, an older watch collector who's a lifelong SME in this particular topic, that person might look at you and say, oh, this young buck coming in, read some blogs. Yeah. Now he's a watch dealer. Like what the fuck he think he is? You know, like that. So I think it always goes both ways,
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like you're never going to please everyone, so I have to at least please myself.
Totally. Yeah. I love the Virgil Off-White thing because.
And I love Virgil.
Yeah.
And all respect to him, and may he rest. Yeah. But that movement where like authenticity is now meaningless, that was kind of like a hard pill to swallow. And growing up, like no one in my junior high knew what Supreme was. Nobody. Yeah. And now it's like you could probably see a kid in every town in America wearing Supreme, and it was seen as like when it was one store on Lafayette Street, and like you had to go there if you wanted something. Now it's all those things, and it's been purchased and it's been
I mean, access has been democratized, and I think it's a beautiful thing, right?
It can be
access to information, access to product, and this new hybrid consumers of culture I think a lot of interesting things are happening, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Let's talk about fashion a little bit.
Sure.
Right? So one of the things that we see happening in fashion, it all comes back to our barbell theory, where you have to be on one side where you're either giving access and fully democratizing what it is that you make, right? So like fast fashion, ultra fast fashion, or you're at the other end of the spectrum where you are protected by the brand moat and you're behind the velvet rope, and it's about scarcity,
right?
And it's about prestige, it's about brand, right? So you have LVMH on one side and you have like Shein on the other now, right? One thing that we see a lot is with young kids, they're buying stuff from the Shein, Uniqlo, H&M sort of area, but then they're still splurging on like a Birkin or a timepiece.
Yeah, like high and low.
Yeah, exactly, high low, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's always been high and low. I do think we have like very low standards for clothing. I think the democratization of I mean, it could be, you could go either way. I mean, it's like, is Supreme less special now that you could buy it online? Yes, 100%. Will a certain pair of Nikes be far less desirable if they're available in every Foot Locker versus just like from tier 0 accounts in certain shops? Yes, definitely. I mean, it could be, with something like that, it's perception. The quality of the item doesn't change. There was a brand that I was obsessed with during like the real pinnacle of my men's fashion interest, Paul Harnden. And if you Google me, a lot of the old photos that come up are still of me wearing Paul Harnden. This was a brand that was in maybe 15 to 20 stores in the world. It was not allowed to be sold online, period. And it never went on sale. There was no interviews, no photos, nothing. And I focused on this brand for 8 years, essentially, wore nothing but this brand. And you could only trade within a small circle of consumers. You could buy stuff on Yahoo Japan sometimes. You would search, I would have every imaginable eBay alert possible. I had people who worked at the consignment stores, and this is before, now you have consignment stores, you have Second Street everywhere. Before we had Tokyo 7 and Aina, and that was about it. Mm-hmm. So I had people at all those places who would call me the second anything from this brand came in, and I would collect it, and it probably didn't get more exclusive than this. And people were maybe thinking like, oh, Rick Owens is exclusive. No, this was like, it didn't get any harder to get than this. And I dedicated like 8 years of my sartorial life kind of to this brand. And that, obviously, the exclusivity and the thrill of the hunt is kind of what, partially motivated me. And it's not so dissimilar with the watches. When people are like, oh, you just don't like the Omega Swatch because it's cheap and it's affordable for people. I'm like, no, this is an account where I talk about exceptional watches. Like, I don't know if you would go to a supercar TikTok and say, hey, why don't you cover Kias more often? So I don't know. I kind of just went off on a tangent, but yeah, I mean, it could be good and it could be bad. There's always been high low. I'm totally down with high and low. But when you get to Shein, I mean, that might be a little too low.
You have any questions for us?
I don't know. What do you think I should be doing?
Great question. I think I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I think that you have such the toughest thing is to find people that are obsessed, and you have that. Right. Like we are obsessed.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be an obsessive. Like the difference between good and great is, 0.1%.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So are you willing to go and you have that? So I could easily see you going into, you're like, okay, watches, huge addressable market. Let's go further up the vertical chain and get into fashion.
Right.
And if you're doing men's fashion, then why can't it be, women's handbags, anything else on that sort of trajectory? By the way, like I have kids. When I started searching for like baby strollers, dude, it was the same exact thing. I'm on the forums.
Yeah,
I'm figuring out the difference between an Uppa Baby and a Bugaboo and like a Stokie, and like it's all the same thing. That's for better or worse, that's probably our like disease. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Like,
Definitely.
so I think you could really apply it to anything. I think back to the tenure question, again, it really just comes down to like, what do you ultimately want to do? Like, what wouldn't you mind doing for a lifetime and not being paid? By the way, I also think that if you're doing that thing, you will get paid very handsomely.
Yeah, that's usually what happens. Yeah. I think it's funny actually how little money I'm making now compared to sort of how many, like for example, with the Louis Vuitton Monterey 2, that watch, I think I probably profited a total of like $3,000 off of those watch sales. Meanwhile, another dealer I know had 4 of them that he bought for like $1,000 each and sold them for like 15,000 each. So I'm like, because of, again, something that I do is making me very little and making someone else a lot. And that I've kind of seen a lot of instances of that where it's like, I'll be connecting to people who are doing a crazy deal that I'm not involved in, or I will be boosting a watch which someone else is going to make a fortune off of.
That doesn't go unnoticed though, Mike.
Well,
I think those are your gifts. I mean, you're essentially being a mensch, right? Like you're like, oh, I have no I think you should go to this dealer, you know? And when you do that, that comes back in spades.
Hopefully. Because I mean, I would love to buy an apartment at some point, and I look at my situation, I'm like, wow, I can't buy an apartment.
Let me ask you this. Do you want to have a storefront eventually?
No.
Okay. Why?
Because the entire business is done online and I don't want to work there and I don't want to go someplace every day.
Would you do a trunk show?
Yeah, I would definitely do one-off stuff, 100%. Yeah. The other thing is like, there's definitely opportunities to place your watches in shops like Kith, for example, or something. But the watches sell so quick and easy online that taking some inventory and placing it someplace in a display in the corner of a store for just to sit there, and the possibility of someone coming in and wanting that one vintage, it just seems so unlikely that like I'd rather just post it on Instagram and have it sell within 2 hours versus like, oh, but you'll get great exposure. That doesn't really do anything for me. But I am totally open to doing events. And I really haven't hosted anything. I have never been on a panel. This is only the second podcast I've ever done ever. So I do feel like there's people who are doing a lot less than me, or contributing a lot less than me, that have the privilege of being in these spaces that I'm not in yet.
So in order for you to, let's say, be able to buy an apartment in New York City in the next X number of years, how many like watches do you have to continuously flip on a monthly basis?
It depends on the watch.
I think I think the apartment money is going to come from something else.
Right.
Like if someone wants to, if I find like a real someone on my wavelength for Mercedes who wants to do 10 sponsored videos, I think it's more likely to come something like that. Again, I have no sponsored posts ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one from Watches and Wonders.
Yeah.
That was disclosed, of course.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe someone will wake up and be like, give him something.
No, and I think it comes back to, what do you think? Like, what would our advice to you be? I think you just keep pushing that trust and that transparency and certainly the curation. Share more of that in the other aspects, right? So again, are you a coffee guy? I bet you're a coffee guy.
I do like coffee, but I don't make my own.
But again, when you're an obsessive like we are, you're gonna know the difference between like a Yirgacheffe and like, oh, I like getting pour over versus the Kalita versus, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. As long as you could have aspects of those types of things constantly come through while people are still getting watch content or shoulder content around watches, I think you're going to be in a really great place to get that Mercedes deal, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the elements that you've shared with us is all in the right place. You have the consistency, you have the tenacity to put 7 videos a week independently while hustling to sell watches.
Yeah.
I think that work ethic is foundational, and also you're an obsessive. I guess the next phase is just continuously building that trust with the community, and maybe start having FaceTime with your community.
I would love to do that. I just don't know what the content, and no matter what, it has to involve security is the problem with these watches.
Yeah. I think actually, so to walk away with tangible things, I think you should actually start doing less, meaning right now you're so in the grind of volume, which especially when you're starting, without volume, you can't make shots you don't take.
Right.
So, but you have enough of a base now, and you have enough of a baseline community where I think you can start being a little bit more deliberate in seeding and putting in like little, like, you know what? I shared this, and I know that I'm going to build on this motif in 6 months. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or just trying to get a little ahead of even programming, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna look at programming in a way where holistically I might still try to average 1 video every day, so 7 videos per week, but that breakdown is gonna be 25% event coverage,
right,
25% brand coverage, 25% listicle. I know listicles aren't really my jam, but they serve a utility and they'll help me with programming. So I think just slowing down a little bit to be a little bit more deliberate with your programming would be super helpful. Yeah, man. And maybe even just getting a little bit of help, you know? I think you're at the stage, I know you're also a restaurant guy. You're at the stage that's invaluable where if you're opening a restaurant, you pick the best location, the hottest wait staff, know the best purveyors of food, and you could cook the meal, right? But now if you want to scale that restaurant, does it make sense that you're washing dishes too? Probably not, right? But, you know, other people are on the flip side of that where they might have all those elements, but they can't cook the food if the chef's like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And now if you hire an editor, you're in a much better position because you're like, what do you mean? I'll show you how to do it on CapCut right now.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know what I do want? I would love that I've never had someone filming for me. Yeah. Like I think the content could be better, and I have some ideas that require maybe like 1 or 2 steps up from just an iPhone camera. Or if I had someone, I also notice the videos do better when I'm in them.
100,000%.
Yeah, so it's like I maybe need someone who can film for me or just follow me around for a day. And
edit.
Yeah.
And that person could also probably
even
filter some of the emails for you. Yeah. So it's just somebody like a holistic chief of staff.
Yeah.
That could handle a lot of the stuff. Like so that you could save up, so you could open up more time, so you could go out and look for more deals, you know, and do more business development, talk to the rep at Cartier, maybe have a coffee with them, you know. So far, we've had several people pull up, and most of them identify themselves as content creator first.
Right.
And whatever other occupation that they aspire to be or that they're partaking in second.
Right. Well, they're probably making a lot more than me on sponsored posts.
Well, in your case, you're a watch dealer first.
Yes.
And you're a content creator second. Yes. Or social media is essentially just your marketing tool. That's how you perceive it.
Both of those things, yes.
What is you've addressed this earlier, but yeah, what is your ultimate goal with what's happening? Because you've essentially had an entire career transition,
right?
With the help of social media.
Yes.
How would you describe your ultimate goal?
I don't really know. It's hard to say because like it could be something. What ends up happening might be something that doesn't even exist yet. I would love to keep doing what I'm doing, and like people seem like interested in what I do. So like some kind of like Anthony Bourdain style thing with watches would be like kind of a cool thing to do, just traveling the world looking for watches, but in the meantime taking in art and food and fashion. I think that would be cool. I don't know what the format of that is, and I don't know how to monetize, but like something like that could be cool.
I could totally see that selling as a TV show, by the way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they do that so much around like the cars.
Right.
They do so much of that around the cars. That would be fire. You're in Kansas one day, and then now you're in, you know,
for
Belgrade,
sure.
And also considering the TV audience is significantly older.
Yep, exactly.
And watch is a topic that you need some disposable income to get into.
For sure.
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Or even if I'm in the same position I'm in now, but better watches are coming to me easier. Like people sending me emails and DMs, you know, saying, "Oh, I found these in my grandfather's attic. I found all these 1940s Cartiers."
Yeah.
That's the dream. Yeah. Like I can't think of a better scenario, even if I'm not making money off of them, even if I could just handle them, because I'm still such a watch nerd at heart. Yeah. Like that, like just stuff like that is, you know, amazing that that's even a possibility.
Do you have any advice for people that are just starting as creators?
Be consistent, for sure. Consistency is like so key. I think with TikTok, more is not better, but also more is not worse. Like if I had enough content to post 20 times a week, I would advise it because more of those videos will go viral. And every time I post, I get more followers. So I don't know. I just think it's different than maybe even Instagram where it's like more is good on TikTok, I would say.
And how actively are you thinking about diversifying platforms?
Not actively at all. I'm only reluctantly on Instagram. And only recently. I probably should have been posting the videos on Instagram earlier. I only started a few months ago, taking the exact same videos from TikTok and putting them on Instagram. I don't like doing it. It's like another chore. However, it does bring in more people, that's for sure. And I run into people like, oh, I saw your reels. Those are, I'm like, reels. I'm like, even in my Instagram bio, I don't know why this is so important to me, but it's like, I truly feel like a TikToker, not someone who posts on Reels.
I love that.
On my bio on Instagram, it says TikTok is my main platform. I post here when I remember, which is the case essentially. Why
is that important to you?
I don't know. I just think Instagram is like, this is not what Instagram is for. And I don't want Reels to like take off.
But people DM you. People DM you on Instagram.
Yes, because the DMs on
TikTok
is horrible.
Yes, I have them turned off. You can't DM me. Anyone, you can't DM me on TikTok. You can only DM me on Instagram. So that's what Instagram has built in. It also like doesn't require a new membership to be on Instagram. Everybody's already on it. It's like when Snapchat, like the original Snapchat stories. I was never on Snapchat. I had the app, but I didn't use it. On the stories, everyone started using stories, and I was like, shit. Now I'm going to have to get onto this thing. And then Instagram stole it and did it so much better. I'm like, oh, thank God, dodged that. That's what I would wish. I wish one would buy the other and I could combine them. I hate being on two platforms. And YouTube, I don't even use. YouTube, someone else steals my videos and posts them. None of my videos are on YouTube, but somebody will take them and I report them one by one. But it's like every day they upload more of my videos.
It's still the best monetization tool. Though.
Yeah. Probably. I just don't care about that enough. But yes, I understand. People all the time say you should do YouTube. If I was going to do a long form thing, I would probably also throw it on YouTube. I have an idea that if I ever have like a cameraman, I have a few ideas longer form that I want to try. And if that were the case, because now TikTok is letting you do like 30-minute videos. And I think if you do take advantage of that, I think TikTok probably will boost it.
The barrier of entry for YouTube Shorts right now is significantly lower than long form.
Right.
Oh, man.
I think it's such a clunky format.
It is, but it's a hack for you to grow.
Yeah.
Rather quickly on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any of these platforms that are competing to take market share of features from other platforms, they're going to incentivize you. Do you have an email list?
No.
You should definitely have an email list.
Really? I just don't. I can't imagine ever even opening an email that's not directed to me specifically.
It has the highest
for your audience too. That's actually gold.
But saying what in those emails?
I mean, even just what you have available in stock.
Well, there's a Craft and Tailored email list with like a ton of people on it.
Mike, you have to own that. That's
no,
true.
I understand, but it's
you
like,
have to own your community.
I don't I just don't. I don't know. I just don't see myself doing it.
You don't have to do anything. My point is, when you're, like, I don't know if you're using Linktree or Beacons or hopefully Beacons because, we like them.
What do I use? You know what I use? I think I just on MikeNouveau.com, it's just like essentially everything you need.
You need data capture on your community and you have such a high LT, like the lifetime value of your customer and someone in your demographic is so high. It's so high. Your email list is probably worth 10x a regular email list.
Yeah, well, I need someone to come in and do this for me because I know I will.
Well, I'm just giving you. That's a huge opportunity.
Oh, the other thing is, I think that Instagram is artificially inflating follower count and views on Reels. Not saying that they're not real, but I think Instagram sees TikTok and they hear people's complaints. They're like, oh, I'm shadow banned. I'm not getting enough views. So they give people the dopamine they want on Instagram. But I do not consider, like, if I see a reel with 1 million views on TikTok, on Instagram, I'm like, it means nothing to me. If I see 1 million view video on TikTok, I say, whoa, this really did well for someone. I think TikTok is the real meritocracy. And I think Instagram is all fluff. Like in my group chat I was telling you about with like 20 men's fashion content creators, there was like a 2-month period where everyone's followers doubled for whatever reason. And someone in the chat was like, wow, now we can charge double for sponsored posts. I was like, not at all. Are you crazy? This is follower inflation. If everyone has their followers increased.
Yeah.
If everyone is now getting 200,000 views on every video, it's worthless. If everyone is doing it, it's might as well be no one doing it. It's if you're getting $10,000 for a sponsored post with 100,000 followers, and then suddenly everyone in your competitive set doubles their followers, your rate is still only $10,000.
Yeah.
So I think Instagram is really like, when people talk about their Instagram numbers, like, oh, the video didn't do well here, but it did well on Instagram. That's all of my videos.
Yeah.
Because I think the numbers are
But
whatever it is.
The eye-opening thing that you call out though is your engagement. Is your engagement better on TikTok too? Because if you're having the highest engagement on TikTok, then dude, that makes your audience even that much more.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because that's people know that's my main platform for sure.
But it's also the most passive platform. You know the thing about TikTok is that they might follow you and never see a video again if FYP doesn't serve it to them in
Right.
6 months, right? So the fact that you're getting that kind of engagement on your videos, that means your community's strong.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I do think I have a strong community.
Which I think, yeah, and actually TikTok makes it harder to harbor a community than Instagram. Because
Right.
Instagram, yeah, like you might get the same 5 people consistently DMing you, and you get to know these people, and they're gonna be your lifetime customers,
Right.
with whatever that you're doing. Whereas with TikTok, first of all, like the verification process is even less stringent than Instagram. So you don't know if this is a bot, you don't know if this is a real human being or not. And
TikTok is?
yeah, TikTok, yeah.
TikTok verification is very hard right now.
No, I'm not talking about the actual check. I'm
Oh,
talking
okay.
about, just getting a TikTok.
Just
account.
spam
see.
accounts
Yeah,
on
yeah,
TikTok.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah, that's
you can't
interesting.
really tell if this is a real human or not, and
Totally.
the type of interaction that you have with this account is very minimal. But I do agree with you that there was a time last year when Instagram was pushing hard on Reels,
Yeah.
where they essentially put like an adrenaline shot
Yes.
in growing everybody's numbers, and I think I benefited from that. A lot of people benefit.
Oh yeah,
from
for
that.
sure. And I think if you're standalone, that's completely fine. When I have 20 colleagues in a group chat that we're all
Trying to go after the
yeah,
same
and
bag.
everyone's numbers doubled, and suddenly like, oh, this video flopped on TikTok, but got 1 million on Instagram. That is meaningless to me. That 1 million on Instagram is worthless.
Yeah.
It's like Zimbabwe dollars or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like it's
Hyperinflation.
yeah, no, really, that's what it is. I couldn't tell you which of my videos have hit 1 million on Instagram because I don't look and I don't care.
Yeah.
TikTok is the real number in my mind.
It's crazy that you're saying that. Yeah.
Because
interesting that you say
I
that.
think that if you post a good video on TikTok, it will do well. I think if you post any video on Instagram, it will probably do at least okay. Whereas if you post a bad video edited poorly or too many ums and uhs or too much silence, it's going to flop on TikTok. I think TikTok is the smartest algorithm that there is on social media. And I think it is a true meritocracy where if you post something great, it will do great. And anytime I've looked back on a video that flops, I understand why in hindsight. On Instagram, everything does decent to good.
That's a very good point.
This was when everyone's followers doubled. It was the same time they started charging for a blue check. So they've taken away the 2 markers that allowed you to determine the power of an account.
Right.
Because now everyone has BS followers, in my mind. It might be a conspiracy theory, but that's how I saw it. And anyone can have a blue check. Whereas Instagram, neither of those things. I just got my blue check on TikTok. On TikTok, none of those things. I just got my blue check on TikTok this week, and I didn't think I was ever. Thank you. And I know it is the hardest one to get,
Yeah.
for sure. And you can't buy it,
can't
and
buy
it's
it.
tricky. And even after my New York Times article, they didn't give it to me.
Right.
I applied again on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I only had one additional article that I added to the application.
Yeah.
And then the next thing on Christmas, I couldn't believe it, actually. I thought it was a spam email because it is very hard to get verified on TikTok. So now I'm finally there. I think I'm the only watch person that has it on there.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, anyone in the world can have it on Instagram.
I mean, this is fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
I want to run you through some numbers off camera
Sure.
in terms of conversions that I think might be helpful to you, just and why email is so important. But
Yeah, I actually wanted to point that out and emphasize that, the VIG that you'll be able to get with your audience, especially considering.
I already know I'm leaving money on the table in all sorts of ways.
well, not
I
only
already know that.
the other thing, like you're so gangster right now. Meaning, if you think your TikTok is the most engaged and the best audience right now, that's literally the hardest, right?
Right.
So if you're doing well there, everything else should be really easy for you. And just so you know, like industry wide, right? So TikTok's the platform that's notorious for some creator might have 20 million followers,
Yes.
right? And they go to VidCon and no one shows up for their meet and greet,
Right.
right? Like it's really, really
I
tough.
also see people with millions of followers, even celebrities, and they still have videos that are 2,000 views.
Yeah. So it's so hard. But if you look at just conversion rates, TikTok conversion rates are usually in the decimals, right? Then Instagram's a little bit better. Then it keeps going down. YouTube is, you might get a 2 to 3%. Then you go to,
What do you mean, conversion in terms of becoming followers or what?
Conversion can be becoming a follower. It could be clicking through.
Right.
It might be buying something.
Right.
But the thing is, even just open rates on an email, open rates on emails for people that you actually follow, it's 50%.
Right.
So even how they're serving your video,
Text is even higher.
yeah, and text is even higher.
But that's gonna really piss people off. Text.
Yeah, but
I would go berserk if I got one like that.
See, here's the thing. If I'm a watch person that I want to know what Mike has, I will absolutely
Right.
give you my phone number.
What about Instagram broadcast channels, whatever, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially your men's fashion group.
Right. Well, no, that's a DM group.
But to the broadcast channel, that's what it is.
I guess
that's
so,
how
yeah.
it starts. And
That's
you
essentially them trying to go after Discord.
yeah, they're
Right.
trying to fan gate that, right?
I would also love to get a Discord going. I feel like that could be like powerful as well.
Super powerful.
Especially with
Yeah.
your audience.
With your
But I don't know what
audience?
is it. Mike Nouveau? Is it watches? What is it?
Nah, I would just stick with all your name. Do everything. Just brand everything.
Yeah,
under
I
Mike
love.
Nouveau.
That's another thing where you're way ahead of the curve. Like the fact that it's all Mike Nouveau, you will one day. I mean, why couldn't you sell watch insurance? Straight up. Like this is how the rifle, like all these things happen that way. Because at the end of the day, it's like, hey, you delay the ask, you delay the ask, you delay the ask. Transparent.
Right.
Trust. Hey, I think some of the other guys that I've seen, they're doing, like authentication and stuff like this. You don't have to do that, like because they know if you're doing it, it's legit.
Right.
So there you have it. We thoroughly enjoyed hearing about Mike's story, and we're excited to see how he continues to expand his brand going forward. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did, please do me a favor and like this video. We have conversations just like these with some of the internet's favorite creators, with new episodes dropping every Monday. If this piques your interest, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next drop. And please let us know who y'all want to see more in the comments below. All right, peace and blessings, y'all.